Welcome back to the 2019 presidential debates. The next segment will be divided into two topics, education and health, very important topics. And this time, let's turn this around a little bit, and I'm going to go right to left. I'm going to be radical and start with the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, because you indeed were an education minister in a previous administration here in Nigeria, and you're still an educator and passionate about it. Now, you've been quoted on this campaign as promising that education will become our new oil and our new gold. That's direct, that's what you said. Easily said, very difficult to do. Would you agree that Nigeria's booming population needs better education? And if so, what are your policies for delivering on that promise?
Education has always been known as the pathway to human progress. Economic and social mobility is possible through education. That's why the child of the poor can quickly rise up to middle class, upper middle class, and upper class, as the case may be. Education is the basis of provision of opportunities for people. And so one of the things we've learned is that early child care education is now paramount for giving people a leg up. In today's Nigeria, more than 65% of the children of the poor do not have that kind of access. We will commence in the change to education by ensuring that foundationally the early child care education is integrated very well. We worked on that policy when I was Minister of Education into what we offer the Nigerian people. Second part of it is that the basic education, secondary education, and tertiary education all require comprehensive reforms. The key reforms would be curricula around the 3 steps. But we would also focus on technical and innovation education, for which we put a certification arrangement within the Nigerian educational diploma and degrees. And number 3 is that teacher quality is at the heart of how effective the education system becomes. Some reasonable number of our teachers are okay, but majority of our teachers, numbering more than perhaps 50%, still have just a TC2 and are in the classroom. We must modernize teaching. We will take teaching to the prestigious profession that it once was by training the teachers massively and equipping them with the new knowledge of the new economy in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Fellow Durotoye, the flag bearer for the Alliance for New Nigeria. Now, if you look through history, you'll see that those nations that have risen up to the dizzying heights that they want to get to, I think of Singapore, for example, based it on education, on people as their raw material. Your candidate who wants the same job that you want, to your left there, just said that people are educating our people as the new oil and gas. What do you say? How important is it, and how are you going to do it, more importantly?
Well, permit me to quickly quote the former president of the United States, Bill Clinton, when he visited Nigeria in 2001. And he said something that was really significant. He said, in the 21st century, the wealth of nations will not be found under the feet of its people, but will be found between their ears. Meaning that it is really what the knowledge, we're in the knowledge era today, and it is what the people know, intellectual capital, that really turns human resource into human capital. Meaning that the more you learn, the more your capacity to earn. And so it is critical that we are able to ensure that all of our citizens have the best opportunities, not only to be able to get a foundational education, but we are able to ensure that they are able to go as far as they can go in their aspiration to get education for opportunities in the marketplace and to start their own business. So the following things need to be done. Number 1, we must ensure that our teachers are people that are committed to the success of the students and not just committed to seeing them pass an exam. They must be committed to the success of the students in life and in the future. So they must ensure that we have the best teachers who are subject experts Today, you'll find one teacher teaching several subjects and being a master of none. We must make sure that we develop specializations and teachers do regular exams to keep in touch with what is going on and what's going on within their field of specialization. The second thing is that we must invest in the infrastructure. The learning environment must be something that is pleasing to anyone who wants to learn. And the last one is that we must center values at the heart of our curriculum. It is extremely important that the way that we think drives the way that we will behave and the results that we will command in the future.
Thank you for that. The Young Progressives Party in power. What are you going to do for education?
Thank you. The YPP has a very, very strong attachment to education, and I happen to be a professor myself, so I have very practical experience in this area. The first thing that our government will do is that we will bring to education the political will to make it the priority, because the progress of Nigeria rises or falls on the strength of our educational system. Today, education is about 7% of our budget. In my presidency, we will begin the first budget of 2020 with not less than 20% of it devoted to education. Now, that's not enough, because you can throw money at problems and it doesn't solve the problem. The budget, 80% of the education budget is on recurrent expenditure, and that is what we're going to move away from. So, we will invest in teacher training. We will retrain and recertify Nigeria's teachers at primary school level, at secondary school level especially. We will invest in curriculum reform, moving learning. 60 to 70% of the curriculum will have to move towards technology, vocational skills, and entrepreneurship. Every young man or woman coming out of an educational system in Nigeria must know how to be able to run a business, because that is how the jobs of the future are created. We will reform pedagogy, that is to say how children learn. As a professor, 60% of my class work, in terms of the grading, 60% is based on your original research. And I taught students from over 30 countries, and these are the most powerful countries in the world. So we will invest in how our children learn, so that they don't just cram and regurgitate for exams. Then we will invest in educational infrastructure, and finally, I will end ASUU strikes in Nigeria.
Now, take a look again at the screens on the left and the right candidates. You may recognize this bright young girl in the next video. She has 3.4 million subscribers on YouTube, and she has a question on education. Roll the tape.
My name is Emmanuel Samuel. I am 8 years old, and I am a YouTube video creator. We all know that education is very important, especially child education. However, the quality of education in our government school is getting poor every day. And that's why parents now put their children in private schools. And we all know that not every child can go to private school because their school fees are very expensive. Now my question is, how will your administration improve teachers' training and improve the quality of education in our government schools, so that every child can have access to good education?
At tackling the challenges of access to health. Number 4 is that health outcomes have focused often on some of the disease burdens that actually impact our productivity. And so we will begin to connect health and well-being to economic productivity. We would work with the private sector to enlighten that knowledge of the connection between healthy well-being and productivity, and incentivize through tax that opportunity for people to be given the best health care possible in the country.
Thank you very much. Okay, the Alliance for New Nigeria. Health is wealth for Nigeria. How are you as president going to achieve that?
Well, first of all, we will ensure that we work with the state and the local governments to be able to produce quality primary health care services at the places where it matters the most, which is right there in the communities where most of the Nigerians live. And this is very important because easily about 90% of the cases that eventually come into secondary and tertiary healthcare institutions could have been solved at a point in time when it was a primary healthcare issue. And we're talking about things like, malaria. We're talking about things like cholera. We're talking about things like dysentery and diarrhea. These are things that can easily be solved, first of all, at the primary healthcare center. And of course, you can even take things like high blood pressure, which if we had the equipment at the primary healthcare center, it would have stemmed the possibility of it becoming a stroke, which has to then become something that you refer to the secondary and tertiary healthcare centers. So we've got to strengthen the primary healthcare center, and since that is within the purview of the local government, but everyone in the local government is still a Nigerian, therefore it is my responsibility also, and the responsibility of the federal government, to ensure that every Nigerian is healthy. Second thing that we've got to do is to make sure that everyone above the age of 60 is going to get free health care, and everyone below the age of 5 is going to get free health care, including pregnant women also. Again, this is very important, because these are the people who have served and given of themselves, and in the times when they have to be, there should be a return on their service, then this is one of the things that has to happen. The last thing I'm going to quickly talk about is the fact that we must ensure that we have health practitioners, as opposed to medical doctors, at the primary health care level. Because, again, medical doctors are really traveling abroad, and we can train healthcare practitioners within the first 6 months, and most importantly, even youth corpers can be trained to easily diagnose primary healthcare issues that can be easily trained on.
Now, you heard from your fellow candidate that he's going to devote 20% of the budget to education and a significant amount, 15% to healthcare. That's expensive. But he seems to have a plan for that. Even in the UK and countries and America, they struggle with their education budgets. They struggle with their health. It's their biggest headache. As president, if you are set to do all these things and increase the education budget and the health budget, where are you going to find the money?
Okay, well, the first is that we are going to find the money from the savings that we have by reducing the cost and the wastage in government. We're going to find the money also by partnering with the private sector, and especially also the alumni of campus, of schools. Most schools today have alumni that are, in fact, what I'll call the alumni economy of most schools are really high net worth individuals who will be willing to give back to the schools and ensure that their schools are well funded if they understood that the glory of their certificate is tied to the performance and the glory of the school now, not just when you were there. Meaning, today, if I graduated from the Obafemi Awolowo University, and today when I go back to the school, sometimes my heart breaks, because I'm looking at students in rooms that I slept in Obafemi Awolowo Hall, and a room that I slept in that had 8 people on 4 double bunks now have 16 to 20 people in one room, lying their head on mattresses and their bodies on the floor. But this is what's going on. We have to be able to find a way to get the alumni to give back, because the glory of the school is reflected in the certificate I carry. So my important, and the most important point I'm making is that we have to get the alumni back. 68% of the assets in Ivy League schools in the United States are funded by alumni. So we've got to get the alumni to know that whilst the school has given you a head start in life, you must not forget, you must always go back to the school and restore the glory of your school.
Thank you. I will stay with that question, and I'll move on to the ACPN. We were talking about all these great ideas, and I was asking where the money is going to come from.
Yes, I often get worried when budgets are allocated to ideas, and then when you sum up the total percentage that's been allocated, it's way beyond 100%. So I am very careful to not promise allocation to budget on the basis of global recommendations. One key thing that needs to happen with education is that we need to be more structurally balanced. A lot of what the problem is that we currently fund a dysfunctionality. Because education is in a state of dysfunction, a lot of the resources that goes into it does not buy you good outcome. And so we have to be very analytical in identifying what it is that matters the most in order to get learning outcomes. Research has shown us that teacher quality is critical. So even though teacher quality is recurrent cost, it needs to be recurrent cost that gives learning outcomes that are globally competitive. The second thing about finding the money for education is that there are many things about education today that revolve around construction. And the constructions that are done in education are not done on the basis of value for money. There are innovative ways of teaching today that do not require massive buildup of resources. A third thing is that the private sector, understanding that the products of education are important for its productivity, are more and more interested in what goes on in education. And so the partnership between government will support it. And finally, for all other expenditures of government that require private sector capital, government will focus on those while focusing on education as a priority.
Thank you very much. Now can I ask you to focus on the screens again, because when we asked,
Since I allocated budgets and a comment was made, I want to talk about where the money will come from.
30 seconds.
Yes, please. First of all, let me be clear. The YPP is a progressive party. That means that we place the citizen as the sole focus of governance. Therefore, we will prioritize the social infrastructure of this country. One, we will not have a country in which we have poor educational and poor health outcomes while we're spending 1 trillion naira on wasteful petroleum subsidies. That is saving number one. 1 trillion naira a year is a lot of money. Saving number two, I have said it, we will partially privatize the NNPC. Not to my friends. I want to be very clear. Not to my friends.
So no cronyism is what you're saying, no cronyism.
Yes, and it will be, the private sector will own 49%, the government will own 51%. And we will sell it on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And there will be a 10% set aside for the oil-producing communities of the Niger Delta.
Okay.
So I can give you even more savings.
No, please don't.
So,
not right now.
Okay.
Okay. So because when we asked young Nigerians, 51% of the voting public, they are young Nigerians between 18 and 35, to send us videos, we were deluged with so many videos. So I want to roll another one now from one young voter with a crucial question for our candidates. Roll the tape.
I'm Olaoluwa Oluwashola, a one champion and executive chairperson of the Young Leaders Council. I'm 23 years old and I'm passionate about youth and leadership. And my question to all the presidential aspirants is, what is your plan for the implementation of our national youth policy? How do you plan to integrate Nigerian youth into the decision-making process and make them feel a part of it? Thank you.
Clearly, it was a bit low. Yeah. All right, so that was from a young man talking about youth empowerment. Let me begin with the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria reaction, please.
Our young people constitute a significant part of this country. The economic opportunities that come from their gainful engagement would be significant for accelerating our economic growth. Therefore, if we're going to claim the 21st century on the basis of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, they must participate in the agenda of policies that would encourage that. And so we have said that 50% of our cabinet will be made up of young people. We have also promised that young people will be given not just opportunity in government, but that we would work with private sector to ensure that the kind of trainings and leadership positions that are necessary to ensure that young people are progressively doing better in society will be on the table. The third part of empowering our young people is that we would ensure that they are globally competitive. Their global competitiveness is necessary for us because we can actually earn loads of revenue as a result of the startup opportunities that our young people would have in the field of technology. As far as we are concerned, science, mathematics, and engineering are very important for the new economy. And our young people are the people who already foresee where this country should be going. And therefore, their insight into the design of the policies of dynamic growth of our economy will be absolutely important. We will then review the youth policy and update it so that it is reflective of youths that are important for our economy.
Madam, gentlemen, this is Live TV. Live TV has breaks. We're going to take one. When we come back, we'll be discussing stamping out corruption, human rights, and the rule of law on the 2019 presidential debates. Welcome back to the 2019 presidential debate. We're live on Bond channels across the world and on social media platforms too. Look us up at #2019debate. Now, the candidates have so far laid out their visions for the economy, for security, for education and healthcare. And we'll end with looking at what they'll do to tackle corruption, strengthen the rule of law and human rights. Now, I will start from my left with the YPP. Interestingly, your pedigree, your background at the UN was one in Truth and Reconciliation as a lawyer, being part of that process in Rwanda, of all places. So you've got considerable experience on healing nations. When it comes to being a president, if you do indeed win the presidency, you're going to have to be healer-in-chief to a great degree. In order to heal the divisions of the nation that didn't necessarily just start with this administration, but go way, way back. We talked about some of the security issues that are children of those divisions. Now, remember, there's no healing without justice, and there's no healing without accountability. Yes, and that goes for all concerns. What is going to be your approach, sir?
My presidency will make sure that Nigeria's peace will be established on the basis of equity and justice and accountability. No one is above the law. There are no sacred cows. Every citizen of Nigeria matters. You matter, I matter, we all matter. That's the basis for healing Nigeria. Secondly, fair treatment of every citizen. I talked about inclusive governance. Third, a vision that is uniting, unifying, and powerful. A world view of transformation on which we can all agree. That is what brought Singapore to where it is. That is what brought Malaysia to where it is. That is how I will take Nigeria to where we're going in the 21st century. Now, I want to talk about Nigeria specifically. I want to give an example with myself. Many people would say I've done rather well in life, but I want to tell you that other than my parents, 3 people gave me very important breaks in life. None of them was from my ethnic group. The first was Mr. Ray Ebu, who employed me in Newswatch as General Counsel of Newswatch in 1988. He was from Akwa Ibom State. The second person was Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, who wrote a reference for me that enabled me to gain a fellowship and a scholarship of $25,000 at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University in Massachusetts. None of these 2 people knew me from Adam. The third was Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, the Emir of Kano today, who recommended me to President Umaru Yar'Adua to be Deputy Governor of the Central Bank. He wasn't my cousin, he wasn't my uncle. But, based on all this personal experience, why would I look at anyone in Nigeria with prejudice? Why would I look at you and see first that you're Yoruba or Igbo Hausa? First of all, you are a Nigerian.
Thank you very much. Alliance for New Nigeria. It's there right in the title, New Nigeria. How do we make this vision into a reality of a new Nigeria that does not have this level of corruption, that does not, respects the rule of law and human rights? The current government, if it were here, have made this one of their watchwords, a corruption crusade, and they would defend their record on that. What will be your record after 4 years?
First of all, let me start by saying I don't think that they will be able to defend their record, because if they could, they would have been here to do so. And especially a situation where if you're a member of a party, then no matter which sins and you have committed in the past, your sins are forgiven, is not a defensible record, so we cannot say that they will be able to defend anything. Today, corruption, or the anti-corruption stance that the government has taken, is actually very selective. It's only against the people that are against the party, and they actually use it to threaten those people to join their parties. So we know that in the new Nigeria, it must be easier for you to catch a thief and more difficult for you to steal. Right now, it's the other way around. It is easier to steal and more difficult for you to catch the thief. And so the most important thing we have to do is to strengthen our institutions. Number one, we must make it difficult for people to steal by making sure that the processes are transparent. We automate those processes, and there's very little intervention with anything that is some form of cash transactions, as it were, human cash intervention. The second thing that we must do is that we must make it easier to report when people have found somebody who's either demanded a bribe or has been in any way involved with a corrupt act. The third is that it must be easier for you to prosecute those people, which means that you must strengthen the investigative agencies, ICPC, EFCC, and several others, the police force, to make sure that those agencies are trained, the officers are well trained and equipped to be able to get their prosecution done properly. And the last is that we must make sure that it is easier for you to get judgments against the corrupt people. And this is very important, because when people do not, it takes 11 years to get a governor or two governors that have stolen 11 years each. Well, justice delayed is truly, in a way, justice denied for a nation.
Thank you very much. Now, the final comment on this, I'll move to the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria. I talked about the pedigree before of the other candidates, and I will say that you've got an interesting history, having launched the Anti-Corruption Coalition, Transparency International, as well as been the face, let's just say, of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. We're talking about corruption, we're talking about human rights, and we're talking about making those things ever more a priority for everyone in the nation. Yes, we know what we need to do. How do we do it?
I think that the first thing that we must do is that, as the president of the country, exemplary leadership is important. You signal to the society that a value reorientation, which you would personify, is on the table, and every sector would follow suit. The second thing is you reduce opportunities for corruption. To reduce opportunities for corruption, you do things like structural changes in the economy. So, for example, we saw what happened with the deregulation and liberalization of the telecom sector. It made the corruption in telecom to vanish. Nobody remembers anymore the kind of corruption we saw in NITEL. Part of that preventing opportunities for corruption involves some of the kind of work that I did, reforming the public procurement system through the due process in this country, raised the value for money, and removed the opaqueness in the award of public contracts. The work that we did with NEITI, Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, shone the light on what happens in the opaque petroleum sector. The major aspect of structural change that would be necessary in our country today is the deregulation of the petroleum sector. It would reduce humongously the corruption that exists and reduce the incentive for people to run for office when they have no idea on how to fix the problems of Nigeria. Number three thing you then do is the detection of corruption and the appropriate sanction. It would require extensive collaboration between the executive arm of government and the judiciary so that there would be conclusive prosecution for those who behave badly. When there are consequences, incentives will realign. Good behavior will be rewarded, bad behavior will be punished.
Thank you very much, madam. Now, let's hear the voice of the people one last time, the voice of the young people. This YouTube video comes from a young gender activist based in Lagos.
My name is Abisola Ayeola. I am 33 years old. I am also an ambassador for One.org, which champions the Poverty, Sexist and Girl Count campaign. The girl child is statistically the most underpowered and vulnerable across all socio-economic groups. What social investment programs does your administration plan to implement that will sufficiently empower the girl child? Thank you.
Kingsley Moghalu.
Yes. The education of the girl child is a matter that is very dear to my heart. And that is one of the reasons why I was the first presidential candidate since 1999 that I know of to choose a female vice presidential running mate, a young woman of 37 years who has been a strong voice for the girl child in the northern part of this country. So we will invest in our girl children. We will give them good education. Access to education is the first thing that will empower the girl child. That is why education must be free, and certainly for women in this country. Secondly, we will make sure that young women have access to finance. We will make sure that young women are protected in their marriages, and we will work against early marriages in any part of this country. We don't want the future of our young girls being stolen by old men who don't want to respect international human rights standards.
Thank you very much. Now, Alliance for New Nigeria, strong words there. What are you going to do for the girl child?
Well, the first thing that we will do is to ensure that every girl child has the opportunity to attain schools and access education in Nigeria. And make sure that every person who essentially has a child at home, especially a girl child, is encouraged to make sure that they get an education. The second thing, and it's very interesting with Dr. Moghalu, today I'm also a presidential candidate that is running alongside with a beautiful and delectable lady by the name of Hajia Abdullahi Iya, Khadija Abdullahi Iya, and she is someone who also has done a lot of work to ensure that girl child education has been at the forefront of a campaign. So we will ensure that we make girl education and female schools, especially primary schools and secondary schools, very, very, very important. We will fund them. And most importantly, in the north, we will secure them as well. Because today, we've seen what has happened in Chibok and several of the other parts of Nigeria, where girls' schools are actually being attacked, especially because with the terrorists and Boko Haram, and they're essentially trying to put fear into the heart of the girls and their parents to make sure that those girls do not go to school. We will ensure that the girls in schools are safe and they're well catered for, and we will take care of them.
Thank you very much. Madam, candidate for the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, you were the co-founder and face of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. What is your campaign to bring up our girls, all our girls?
As Minister of Education, we found the disparity between boys in school and girls in school heartbreaking, especially in the northern parts of this country. That is why it was particularly painful for me to see that girls who went to school in Chibok and subsequently Dapchi were taken away from their school. One thing we know that research says to us is that a nation that educates the girl child has a higher track to progress and development. Therefore, getting girls in school must be priority for every country, especially one like ours struggling with development. The number one thing that matters for girls in school is to give an incentive to their families to send girls to school, because barriers that keep girls away from school are social, they are cultural, they are economic, and each of those have policy solutions to tackle them. We will use those tools. The second thing is to give incentive for the girls to want to go to school. And part of the way to do that is role modeling. And so female teachers go a long way at making girls want to achieve more. We would do that. We would also focus on the productivity of the parents of girls, because we have found that when women are economically empowered, they spend 70% of their income on the education of their children. At that point, they stop discriminating between the boys and the girls, and that's important. The fourth thing that we would like to do is to show to the Nigerian people that economic empowerment of women is simply smart economics. It enables the entire society to benefit. It is not the girl child that benefits from access to education. It is actually the community, the family, and the nation state.
Thank you for that. Now, we've come to that time where I'm going to ask you to speak into the microphone really one last time, and that's for your final statement. The whole world is watching. Nigerians are watching. You have 1 minute, sir, the Young Progressives Party, to give your final statement.
Thank you. The APC and the PDP over the past 20 years have brought our country to a sorry pass. It is time for something new, something different, something bold. That something new, different, and bold is represented by the Young Progressive Party and my candidacy, and me, Professor Kingsley Moghalu, as the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The future will be shaped by Google and Alphabet. The future will be shaped by artificial intelligence. The future will not be shaped by old and recycled politicians whose worldviews have been shaped by military adventures and ethnic massacres of 1966. The future will not be shaped by recycled politicians who have cornered our commonwealth and laundered it as entrepreneurship. The future will not be shaped by the sound and fury of activism. It will not be shaped even by well-intentioned but inexperienced Nigerians. The presidency of Nigeria is a very serious responsibility. I am ready, and it is time. Thank you. Vote for YPP.
Thank you. The Alliance for New Nigeria, Fela Dorotoye, 1 minute to give your final statement.
Well, my brothers and sisters, every 20 years, something happens in this nation that gives us an opportunity to be able to reset what is going on in governance, and power shifts from the hands of the so-called powerful into a fresh hands that are ready to shape the future. It happened in December 12, 1959. 20 years later was 1979. Again, power shifted from the hand of the military into the hand of civilians. 20 years later was 1999. Again, another general election. And power shifted from the hands of the military into what I call the hands of the military in civilian clothes. 20 years from 1999 is 2019. And once again, power will shift. And the question is, where does it go? And it has to go into the hands of the people who have not had any shackles with the political past, who have a new future and a fresh future to offer this nation.
Thank you for that statement. Thank you for that statement. I'll go to the final 1 minute statement. This one from Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, the flag bearer for the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria. Madam.
You have had a lot of words tonight, but there's one thing I want you to take away with you. It is that this is a historical moment. This is your moment. The citizens of this country can shape a new direction for our country. I have spoken to you not as one who is theorizing about how to do the development of our country. I've spoken to you as one who cares what our polity is in need of is the leader that truly cares, that has the competence, that also is capable of solving our problems. I can assure you that my running for president is not so that I will be called Madam President. It is simply so that we will mobilize ourselves and begin the urgent rescue of our nation. I want you to know that it is possible and it will be done when you agree. Make sure that the 16th of February, you use your vote well.
Thank you. Can I now ask the candidates to come forward to receive applause for what was a spirited presidential debate? Come and step forward together here, please. On the line.
Thank you.
Now I'll call upon Timi Dakolo to sing his hit, Great Nation. And as we are all Nigerians here, in a show of unity, I will ask you to hold hands.